This is an FPL Nightmare, FPL Nightmare song. Roll on game week 38, cause everything's gone wrong. Oh, everything's gone tits up. Ever since game week 1, it's an FPL Nightmare. That's how my season's gone. Oh, I wanted a Vardy party, but his points pinned off the bar. Should have gone with De Bruyne, but I went for Paul Pogba. Oh, I spent 14 million, Liverpool's defensive stars, and 4 mil Johnny Lundstrom, and scored them both by far. Cause it's an FPL Nightmare, got me pulling out my hair. I'm the greatest football manager to ever grace the old armchair. But the FPL gods hate me, and no one seems to care that my points are only average and my ranking is not fair. Oh, I started with Dean Henderson for a save of 2 IOs. Went down the drain in the very first game when everyone else went home. So I brought in the man from Burnley to guard between the sticks, despaired in my misfortunes when it cost me -6. So roll on game week 38, cause everything's gone wrong. Everything's gone tits up. Ever since game week 1, it's an FPL Nightmare. That's how my season's gone, and now I've pinned all my hopes and dreams on Help Me Miss Young Min song. Oh, it's an FPL Nightmare, got me pulling out my hair. I'm the greatest football manager to ever grace the old armchair. But the FPL gods hate me, and no one seems to care that my points are only average and my ranking is not fair.
One, and I realised I'd forgotten to put my microphone on, so now I've turned it back on, and you can't go wrong without a technical error on this streaming game. It's only my second stream, so forgive me, but now I am live. I'm getting the comments in I'd already realised, but never mind. You can't always get it right in this game. So today we are going to be discussing first drafts. I've got 7 of the best for you. The magnificent 7, you could say. And I am going to save my beautiful draft, going to take me all the way up to world number 1. I'm going to save that for last because I want a bit of the retention. I want to keep you around. I need to get my watch hours up. But, however, I'm not going to be able to boost my watch hours all that much because we've only got until 6 p.m. because tonight is the very first episode of the FPL Pubcast over on the FPL Have a Beer channel, and I will hype that up a bit more right towards the end of the show. But first, let's get back to the game. How is everybody doing? I can see I've got a few in the chat. I've lost a few, probably because I started with a muted mic. How is my microphone? Is it a bit loud? Seems a little bit loud. I'll turn it down just a touch. If you have to turn your volume up, you'll have to forgive me. So, given that we are short of time and lots to talk about, let's go straight into the drafts and hope that I've positioned myself correctly on my chair so I fit into the little window in the corner. Oh, nope. Of course, I had it slightly off, but I'm there now. So if you remember last time, I talked through a teleprompter so I can look you dead in the eye, but it's too small for me to actually see my graphics on the screen, so I need to bring up them on my screen to the side. So when I'm looking off, I'm not looking for trouble. I am looking at my team. So this was my first draft, my first instinct draft. And as always, as a fan of my beloved Newcastle, I had to get the greatest striker in all of world football into the team. And, you know, I probably could have done it with Salah in the squad, but I thought, well, he's got Bournemouth away, good fixture, but then it's Newcastle and Arsenal. Can I plan an early wildcard and go without Salah? Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see. But, yeah, if you look at this draft, it's very front heavy. You know, I've got Cucurella, bloody hell, I'm doing a Gary and stumbling over names, and it's the first one I've said. I have got Cucurella, Van der Ven, Mikalenko, De Kuiper and Gehi in defence. What I like about that, you've got your premium in Cucurella, who's got a nice run of fixtures. And then you've got Mikalenko again, he's got a decent run of fixtures. But that was really just for your man Alex Volo. He hypes up Mikalenko no end. And sometimes you've just got to bow to the power of the manifestation. And then I had De Kuiper, who seems like a very attacking fullback, and obviously Purvis Estepinian's off to Milan, so he could have an unfettered run at the team. But I feel like a lot of people are forgetting about Ferdy Kadikoglu, the one from Brighton that was all hyped last season. We'll call him Ferdy. Big Ferdy. People are forgetting about Ferdy. So I don't know if De Kuiper will be there, but then you've got Gehi, Mikalenko, pretty much nailed. Van der Ven, beautiful. And then in the midfield and the attack, you look at that attack. Isak, Watkins, Solanke. Solanke's going to be in pretty much everybody's draft because of that opening fixture. And you know what? How many big chances Brentford got last season? You've got to think Solanke's got to be in the goals. And then, yeah, in the midfield, you've got Bruno Fernandes. Will he benefit from those DEFCON points and take his game to even higher levels? You've got Wirtz, Florian Wirtz. You see, I don't have Salah, but Wirtz, will he cover him? Will he not? Who knows? But will having Wirtz over Salah to enable Fernandes, Watkins, Isak and whatnot, will that produce more points? Perhaps. You've got to think of these things as a collective. It's not all about one player, even if he is the best captain in the game. Then I've got obviously Cole Palmer, and then the other midfielders, I've got Declan Rice, who I think, I don't think he's a secret at the moment, but I do think he is going to have a good season. And then as cover, you see, this is where the DEFCON points come in really handy for me, I think. Elliot Anderson, he would have got about 137, 140 points last season with the DEFCON. And what I like about Anderson is you can have him on your bench, first sub, and then if he has to play against a good team, he's going to rack up the DEFCON points, maybe get an extra point or two. And if he has to play against like a weaker team, well, I mean, Elliot Anderson, they call him the Geordie Maradona for a reason. I feel Elliot Anderson is the 8th attacker to have this season. And when you factor in that Morgan Gibbs-White is probably on his way to Spurs, if they can get around the legalities of activating that release clause, you have to think Anderson's going to become even more prominent and the Geordie Maradona is going to rack up the points. So I think Anderson is a good one. However, a little spoiler, he's not actually in my current draft, but we will get to that very shortly. So now I'll just have a quick look through the chat before we switch over. Colm, of course, Colm's here. Hello, Colm, top man. Marv FPL, newcomer to the channel. Hello, Marv. FPL from the lane, Sam. I tell you what it is about FPL from the lane, Sam. I got a message about an hour and a half ago saying, "Oi, Nightmare, when are you going live again? I need that energy." And I was in the back of my, I'm sorting out the graphics. I'm sorting out the thumbnails, and I thought I could just tell them, but maybe I'll tell them at the last minute. And it had to be a last minute job because I had to shave my shiny bonds before I could go live. Honest to God, it was such a mad panic. I can't believe how I'm fasting. I hope how fast I'm talking. I'm fasting. Bloody hell. I can't believe how fast I'm talking. I hope it is all coherent for you all. If you want me to slow down, just say, but we're down to 35 minutes till the pubcast, and we can't miss the pubcast. So we've got FPL Have a Beer in the chat. Hello, Gary. He's saying oi, so I must have offended him at some point. But I I haven't said anything too bad this time. FPL Discomfort, Kieran. I tell you what it is about Kieran Discomfort. This might be top secret, he is launching a new quiz channel. And since FPL Phillips has backed away from the FPL quiz game, I have felt that gaping void. But if you have ever seen Tension on YouTube, it's a really fun quiz. You've got to get the top 10 answers, a bit like Family Fortunes, but the lower down you get, the more points you get. And however, if you hit the 11th answer, you lose points. And my episode is recorded and I can't tell you what happens. But it's with FPL Have a Beer, it's with FPL Fran, and it is with Adam from Above Average FPL, and it is a stonker of an episode. If I was Kieran, I would go with that first because it'll set the benchmark for the series. So if you don't follow Kieran, FPL Discomfort, make sure you do so that you can keep an eye out for the first episode of FPL Tension. Who else is in the chat? FPL Glasto, hello. Ricky Ricardo, always a great supporter of the independent streamer. Gooseiero, hello Goose. David Hamill. Blonde is in the chat. I think that's everyone that's commented at the very least. And if you want to shout out, all you need to do is leave a comment. Goose is talking about these 5.5 million DMs. Well, as Big Andy made the point on Twitter last night, when you talk about, Caicedo getting 140 points, Elliot Anderson getting 137, that's factoring in the yellow cards from last season. So I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. But, right, I am going to pan through these drafts and then we'll get back to the chat at the end. So if you've got something to say, put it in the chat and I will get back to you at the end. But we have to keep it moving. Like Bugsy Malone would say, got to keep it moving. Because the pubcast starts in 33 minutes. And right, so we'll just get on with it. Stop hyping up these drafts. The next draft, the second draft I've got for you. Now, this is an interesting one. Because what I always find is people always say, whatever you do, play it a bit safe at the start of the game. Whatever you do, do not deviate from the tried and trusted too much because it's a gamble. And if it goes wrong, then what are you going to do? You're going to be, a bit in the mud. But I wondered what happens if you went for a squad consisting entirely of new signings, newcomers at the clubs. What if they all get that initial bounce that Angel Di Maria had all those years ago when he got 4 double figures in his first 5 games? So this is the new signings draft. And if you look at that, I'll just bring it up on my screen. If you look at that, I think it's quite good. There's a lot of money in the bank. I can't remember how much is in the bank. And yes, I have included Gyökeres and Ekitike in there as well, because they are likely to sign very soon. But if you look at that, you've got Kelleher and Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal. Now, if James Trafford moves to my beloved Newcastle, Kelleher and Trafford in a new signings draft, what a goalkeeping double up that is. In defence, you've got De Kuiper, Ait-Nouri, Diego Leon, who I don't know much about, but my man FPL D Unit, who you can see live on the pubcast in just under half an hour, he hypes him up a lot, so we've got him in. We've got Kirkes and Truffert, who of course replaces Kirkes at Bournemouth. Will he have the same sort of impact? Who knows? But even if he doesn't, you've got Kirkes, Ait-Nouri and De Kuiper. You've got to think, Kirkes and Ait-Nouri are going to play most games, but it is a bit of a gamble defence. You just don't know. But it's an exciting one. Even more exciting if you were to leave out Ekitike and put in Frimpong instead of Diego Leon or Truffert. And then you could have perhaps Wissa if he completes the move to my beloved Newcastle as your other striker. In the midfield, I mean, this is the potential of high risk, highest reward. You've got Mbeumo, proven competitor. Cunha, proven elite operator. Elanga. You look at what Eddie Howe did for Jacob Murphy, what he did for Almiron 2 seasons ago, how he elevated Anthony Gordon. There's some who say Eddie Howe doesn't know what to do with wingers. And to them I say, you should watch Newcastle a little bit more. Because Elanga, he could go to the next level. At some point, we'll all have Elanga in our squads. That's what I'm saying. Then you've got Madueke, I don't think he's leaving the Chelsea bench to go to the Arsenal bench. Now, they could bring in an Eze or Rodrigo, but I think Madueke starts the season on that left wing. I do. That's where he ended the season for Chelsea. I think he starts, and he's the most selfish footballer I've ever seen. Magnificently selfish if you're talking in FPL terms. I don't think he'll do much, but I have been wrong about things before, and I will be wrong about them again. And then Florian Wirtz, I talk about the Di Maria impact. 4 double figures in his first 5 game weeks a few years back. If anyone can replicate that, it's going to be Florian Wirtz. I'm just going to have a sip of my Fanta. And then up top, Joao Pedro, hit and miss. You could have Delap. You could have Delap instead of Ekitike, and guarantee yourself one of the Chelsea strikers and put in Frimpong and Kirkes instead of Diego Leon. And then, there's points in that team. It might not take you to the elite levels, but if I was to, if they all have that new signing bounce, that's the sort of squad that could take you to world number 1 in game week 1. You talk about your bench boost game week 1. Could something like that, maybe with Newcastle's Trafford or Man City's Trafford in goal instead of Kepa, could that take you to the world number 1 in game week 1? Who knows? Oh, FPL Lane's asking if Vimped only for Saturdays. No, I'll tell you what it is. I just didn't have time. I had to get a move on. So, right, and likewise, after I did this draft, we'll get on to the next draft. I thought, I quite enjoyed a little bit of a novelty draft, a bit of fun. What other novelty draft could I come up with that might well be elite, packed with differentials? Well, I'll tell you what it is. This is the Portuguese's draft. And if you look at this one, this is a draft made only of people from Brazil or Portugal. We'll call this the Roberto Hollis tribute draft. And what this has, like I say, only people who speak Portuguese as their native language from Brazil or Portugal in goal. What a pairing. And you could have Edison as a keeper, but I wanted 3-Man City elsewhere. You look at the Portuguese draft, Alisson Becker in goal, a defence consisting of 3 or 4 from Murillo, Gabriel, Ruben Diaz, Mateus Nunes and Diogo Dalot. A midfield of Cunha, Rodri, Pedro Neto, Bruno Fernandes and Bruno Guimaraes. And you might be sleeping on Guimaraes, but he's, since Tonali reverted to holding midfield, Guimaraes is a lot more advanced. He's in the tough games, he's getting them DEFCONs, and in the weaker games, he's getting them goals, them crucial goals and assists. And I think, you could say, he's already had 3 breakout seasons on the bounce, but I think this could be the season where Bruno Guimaraes is finally seen in that world-class calibre that he deserves to be seen in. But there's other options there as well that I can't remember off the top of my head. I should have made notes, but I was rushed for time because of the pubcast in 26 minutes. So, and then up front, Joao Pedro, Evan Nielsen and Rodrigo Muniz. Now, is Rodrigo Muniz going to stay at Fulham? You just don't know. Will he be able to displace a 33-year-old Raul Jimenez? You'd have to think he'd back himself too. But the rumour is he's off to Leeds United. And we know Leeds United's 5.5 million strikers can have a sensational impact in the FPL game. So, when it comes to actually going with a squad, I could make a case for all of these people. I haven't actually got Mateus Nunes in a lot of my drafts, but when people are talking about Ait-Nouri, I actually think Nunes is the one. I think he could be... Mateus Nunes could provide what people expect Ait-Nouri to provide. So I'm not ruling him out. Excuse me. Rodrigo. I don't know why they call him Rodrigo when everyone calls him Rodri. It's like how they call Savio. Let's get some synergy between your commentators and your FPL game, please. Because it leads to all the content creators. They all have to write Savio, and everyone knows they mean Savinho, but they have to write Savio, and it just doesn't seem right. So Rodrigo, was it 8 goals and 10 assists in his last full season? 160 points. Now we've added DEFCON. You have to wonder how he's going to recover from his injury. But I think, he's a secret weapon. He's not even secret. But I wonder if by game week 1, he'll be in most people's teams. All the talk is Declan Rice at that 6.5 level, Enzo Fernandez. But Rodri could well be the one, especially when you look at the fixtures. Pedro Neto, he looks like a bit of a hit and miss. If he peaks, great. Bruno Fernandes, if you saw a draft with Bruno Fernandes in, you're not going to say it's a bad move. That's my thoughts on Bruno. Whether it's right to start with him or you wait till the initial tough fixtures are past, who knows? But he'll be in most of our teams at some point. And then the strike force, people are sleeping on Bournemouth in general. Semenyo, 160 points last season. The defence might be weakened, but that's just going to mean they have to attack more. So, Evan Ilson, Semenyo, Clivert even, they're all viable options, but we don't like signing people that have a tough opening fixture, and you don't get tougher than an emotionally charged Anfield on the opening day of the season. And then Joao Pedro, Roberto says he's a generational talent. I think Roberto must be generationally delusional because he's a hit and miss performer. But when he's a hit, what a hit he is. So that was the Portuguese draft, and that's the end of the novelties. We'll get back to the serious drafts because I don't want you to feel like I'm wasting your time, but I did want you to say that, there are options, there are alternate drafts you can go for in this game that don't have to be the template and can still do well. Ricky Ricardo saying Igor Jesus from Forest could be a shout for the Portugueses. He could. He was in my thoughts, but the problem is, he's got to displace Chris Wood first, and while I think he might over the course of the season, I don't think you're getting rid of Chris Wood early on. Gabriel Jesus, another option when fit. Right, I'm going to take a moment here because I've just seen FPL Glassdoor's asking me about Isak to Liverpool. Now, if Isak goes to Liverpool, he would be perfect for that new signing draft. Although you'd have to lose somebody else. But no, I don't think Isak's going to Liverpool. I don't. And I'd quite frankly, I'd prefer you to stop talking about it. What I think will happen, and I said this in my last stream, I think Isak's going to get a bumper new contract with a release clause and he'll leave next summer. Most likely, in my mind, for Real Madrid. I think Real Madrid will sell Vinicius Jr. to Saudi Arabia, Mbappe will move to the left wing and Isak will be Real Madrid's new number 9. That is my official prediction. Now, could Liverpool come in with stupid money? Probably. And if they do, it'll be because our stupid owners have bought half their rejects and carted them over to Saudi Arabia, which will really stick in the craw. But, I don't think it happens. I think he gets a new contract for a year, and I think this turns into his Cristiano Ronaldo season. When Fergie convinced Ronaldo to stay for that one extra season, and then he got 41 goals. I think they won the title that year, didn't they? And I'm not ruling Newcastle out for the title at this stage, but, we need to get a move on with these signings. So, moving on to my next serious draft. I thought, look, I can't call myself an FPL content creator and not have a draft with Mohamed Salah in the team. Also, I really felt I needed some Man City attack. So, I put together this draft. And again, the keepers, they're the same. Darlow and Kelleher, they're just placeholders, really. I quite like Petrovic or Jordi Petrovic of Bournemouth, but again, Liverpool at home. Darlow could be any 4 million keeper, whoever you want. I'm not going to talk about the keepers until the change. But this draft, I think, looks good. You've got you've got six of your attackers. There's your 6 nailed ones: Salah, Foden, Palmer, Rodgers, Solanke and Bowen. You can alternate. There's Tierney, Barry. Again, you look at what Beto did last year, and this is the man to replace him. This is my man D-Unit. I don't know much about Barry, but my man D-Unit says he is the one to gamble on. And I reckon if you go to the pubcast in 20 minutes, you'll see Tierney Barry in D-Unit's draft. But you'll have to wait, like we all will. And Elliot Anderson again, same reason. Now, Foden is the gamble, of course. But you could go safe. You could put an Eze or something in there. But I don't know. Like I say, Rodri, you could put Rodri in there and then upgrade Barry to a 7.5 million striker, someone who feels a bit more nailed. There's all sorts of options. But you do need a bit of a gamble on game week 1. And Phil Foden has a massive point to prove. But the thing about this defence, you've got Milenkovic in there as well as Cucurella. And Forest had a big drop-off in the run-in last season when they started getting tired and stuff. But I think they're going to be tight. They've got some good opening fixtures, really good opening fixtures. And yeah, there's the talk of Europe and the impact of Europe. So, for one, that doesn't kick in until later on after those good fixtures, when you can swap Milenkovic for one of these 5 million, 5.5 million, 4.5 million defenders that have emerged and even make a bit of money. But until then, I think he's going to be top draw. I love that bloke. Always trust the Serbs, as a great woman once said on a vlog channel. And then, Wan-Bissaka. Now, he probably should have been in my initial draft, especially given he plays Sunderland, but I forgot all about him until I watched a few videos. And I'm like, of course, Wan-Bissaka. And then, of course, Chewy FPL with his wonderful threads on Twitter about the DEFCON contributions. Wan-Bissaka is unbelievable for them. So I don't think he'll leave me draft. He says, completely forgetting that he can't remember what his next draft is. So that was my Salah plus Man City attack draft. But then I did think, what are we going to do about Foden? What if I want someone a bit more secure? And that was easy. I swapped Milenkovic out for Ola Aina, and then I upgrade Phil Foden to Marmoush. Now Marmoush, I love the bloke. I love the way his name sounds in the mouth. Marmoush. My man Joaquin Jeeves from the League of Gentlemen, when we were growing up, he would always emphasise points by going oosh. A bit like your man on the Twitter with the Bosch 5 or whatever he's called. Bosh! That bloke, I can't remember his name, Big John. Bosh! Well, Joaquin Jeeves used to say oosh. And that's what I like about Marmoush. It gives me that little throwback to my teen years. But also, he's a classy operator. And now he's had that 6 months to settle in. He's going to be playing the De Bruyne role. He'll be playing the Haaland role at times. He's got the strikes from distance. He's got set pieces. He scored a hat-trick against Newcastle. That was, elite level finishing. And then once I saw Marmoush in the draft, I thought, it's nice. It's just a nice draft. Morgan Rodgers, I feel a lot of people are sleeping on Morgan Rodgers. He got over 160 points last season. He's a workhorse. I'm not actually sure what his DEFCON points are, but he's a workhorse. And he's got that beautiful run of opening fixtures. Even Newcastle. Now, this is going to hurt me to say it. And I don't really want to. But Villa, at Villa Park, kind of have our number. St James's, different story altogether. But at Villa Park, they thrashed us last season. They thrashed us either the season before, the one before that. Unai Emery, there's always a bit, there's a bit of history with Villa. It's a bit more charged as a game than you'd expect because of the sub on the tie and who's your next Messiah, Anto Deck. I feel people are sleeping on Morgan Rodgers, and you've got to remember, what was the last event at Villa Park? It was Ozzy Osbourne's homecoming, Black Sabbath's homecoming, and now the Prince of Darkness, the hard rock icon He's passed away. He's ascended to the next level. And Villa Park is going to be emotionally charged for that. You have to think. You might think you can't conflate heavy metal and football, but I'm telling you, you can. And I'm telling you, I am not happy. Newcastle are at Villa Park on the opening day of the season, and it's why Isak's left my draft, as well as a speculation, because we don't know how that's going to affect him. So I think Morgan Rogers is perhaps being the most slept-on player in the drafts so far. Right, 15 minutes. I'm going to have to get a move on here. Although I've only got 2 left to go after this one, so we're all right. But yeah, I think that's a good draft. If I wanted Salah, that's probably the draft I'd go with. Maybe not Barry. I'd maybe find a way to get somebody better in than Barry. But, you know, if I trust the D unit, it shouldn't be a bad thing, really. And I can always bench you. New stadiums for Everton, I don't know. New stadiums always have a bit of a weird effect, which is why I don't have a lot of Everton in my drafts, despite them having good fixtures. But if I'm going to take a punt, why not a 6 million striker? But then I thought, well, what if I swap Salah out? What can I do to this squad if I swap Salah out? And you look at that, and I mean, that is a sexy draft, like. That is sexy. That's the sort of draft that if you saw it, you'd start licking your eyebrows, and you'd fix your hair. Although I don't have any of that, but I'd be getting the polish off the bar, the glass polish, and I'd be shining my head. Look at that draft. Instead of Kelleher, you've got Matt Sells in goal. You've got Milenkovic and Kukureya. Beautiful picks. And then you've got De Kuyper, a bit of a gamble, and Wan-Bissaka, very solid pick. Beautiful. Esteve, the 4 million of choice, I am reliably told, if he stays at Burnley. Although I was watching Andy Martin on the FPL Wire last night, and I think, was it Goodmanson, the Leeds left back? He said he's the 4 million of choice, if I remember correctly, from Leeds. So that might be another option to keep an eye on. But look at this midfield. And look at this midfield and attack. Suddenly Barry is your 8th attacker, your first choice. And if he goes off, he's going to, because of his price, he's going to get so many transfers in. That's team value through the roof immediately. But look at this midfield. Morgan Rogers, Cole Palmer, Florian Wirtz, Bruno Fernandes, Bukayo Saka, Dominic Solanke and Jared Bowen up front. I mean, this is elite. This is sexy. It's so good that I just, I look at it and I think, how can anyone go with Salah? What's the point? He's got Newcastle and Arsenal in his first 3 fixtures. Why not gamble against him? And then with the early wild card in mind, because with all these extra transfers, the free hits and everything, why not be a bit aggressive? Gamble against a 33-year-old winger at £14.5 million and just have a bit of a chance. Take a chance. I love that draft. And I want your comments. Get them comments in. I'll look back at them in... Oh, bugger, we've only got about 6 minutes left. 11 minutes before the pubcast. But yeah, I do really like that one. But then I thought, Bruno Fernandes... is he worth it? What's missing from this draft? That man I've just been hyping up. Marmouche. So what if I got rid of Bruno and brought in Marmouche? And I mean, look at that. Suddenly, your man Barry becomes Jorgen Strand Larsen, a player I am a big advocate of. And if you remember last season, when Cunha got his suspension... when he was injured, when he got that big suspension for being a little bit of an idiot, Strand Larsen was goals. He was in the points every game week, right up until Cunha came back. And then he was gone. He was out of the goals again because Cunha made everything about himself. But there's no Cunha there now. Now there's no Aitnori either. But, an attacking left-back's a little bit easier to replace than... a goal scorer. I mean, you look at that. Jorgen Strand Larsen. I can't remember Wolves fixtures off the top of my head. FPL Black Wolf, he's the man to follow when it comes to Wolves. But you look at that. There's no Lorena. You've got Milenkovic. You've got Sells, Milenkovic. Attack them Forest fixtures early in the defence. Kukureya, he's going to be in everyone's draft, Kukureya. And then you've got the De Kuyper, Wan-Bissaka, Gamble, solid safety pick. And De Kuyper, if he gets, he's got something like 37 attacking returns in 3 seasons. If he gets one early doors, he's another one of those value risers. But look at that midfield. Look at that attack. Rodgers, Palmer, Marmoush, Saka, Wirtz, Solanke and Bowen with Jorgen Strand Larsen as a sub. I just can't justify Mo Salah. Haaland caused damage for people last season. He went off well early doors, but he couldn't sustain it. This team can. And now I'm going to bring up the chat because I want to see your arguments against it. And all I'm going to hear is, what about Salah? What about Salah? Well, what about him? Look at that. I'm not here to make up the numbers. I'm here to be that world number 1. I'm going for the top. I'm going for all the marbles. And if I go with this draft and I get the Salah gamble right, there's going to be a lot of people playing catch up and telling transfers. So let's see what the chat says. Burnley 0, PSG 0. I don't know. Are they playing in a friendly? Perhaps. Who knows? Oh, crikey, I've got a bit more chat than I thought I would. I might not have time. We've only got 7 minutes till the pubcast. Starman floating in the sky. Where is Kudos? He's not in my squad because I just don't back him as a pick. Like I said, why would you go for Kudos when you could get Rodri? You know what you're getting with Rodri. 8 goals, 10 assists. DEFCON points through the roof. Kudos flatters to deceive, 2 years ago, you'd be asking me where was Alan Saint-Maximin. It's the same sort of thing. I love Saint-Maximin. There's not a player I enjoyed watching more for Newcastle between Ben Arfa and Isak than Saint-Maximin. But he's not getting your FPL points because he's a bit unpredictable. And Kudos, is he going to have a settled position? Who knows? So I'm not really bothered about Kudos. Hello, hippie. Starman asked about Saka, so that must have been a while back because he's in there in my final draft, as you can see. Manish Tapper, welcome to the channel. Colm's laughing. Probably, I'm guessing that's about my reaction to Isak. Who knows? Colm's asking, is there anything? I'll come back to that question, Colm. Ricky Ricardo, he advises against Tieno Barry. He says wasn't very good for the under-21s fantasy team. So there is a word of caution. D-Unit backs him. Ricky Ricardo does not. CR7/LM10. Ooh, I wonder if we've got a Messi Ronaldo fanboy. Hello. I don't know how to abbreviate your name, so I'll say Kur7x Lemon 10. Hello. Thank you for joining the channel. Nobody else knew. FPL FOMO, hello. I've seen your streams a few times. Nice to see you come over to my channel. I appreciate the support. So, those are my drafts. I am going to wrap it in a minute. You've got about 10 seconds to get anything you want to say in the chat before I depart, because of course coming up in around 5 minutes time is the FPL pubcast, and this is something I would have been on tonight. However, my wife's on holiday from work and I could only get a small window in which to stream, and I couldn't really. I'm at work first thing in the morning on a 24-hour shift, and I couldn't justify streaming for 2 hours with the lads at that time of night when, my wife would have to be somewhere else. It wasn't really fair. I mean, I suppose I could have got her on the pubcast as well, but I can't let my wife loose on a chat with D-Unit. He's too handsome. I'll be The D will stand for divorce. The divorce unit. I wonder if that's what it does stand for. Somebody ask him in the pubcast chat. But as you can see, you've got my 4 regular streaming partners, D Unit, Roberto, Nick Triggerlips, and Gary Have a Beer. They are all streaming. They're doing draft wars tonight. They've all come up with the draft. And as you can see, look at them ranks on there. Now, a little secret, they are not last season's ranks, except for D Unit. D Unit hit that last season. Roberto, I think, was the season before. Gary was the season before with his 3K. And Triggerlips, you know, he's got something like 4 top 1,000 finishes, 2 top 100 finishes. A bit more respect needs to be put on the name of Nick Triggerlips in this community, because he is an elite operator. And his best finish ever was 35th in the world. And the content he's been putting out this last week in particular is elite level. So I would highly recommend you go over to 4 of the best minds in the FPL community. Well, 3 of the best minds in Gary. And but Gary does a good representation of what FPL Review can offer you. And then, I'd go and see what they have to say, because I will be watching that and, you know, get these different opinions, the independent content creators, the ones climbing the ranks. Get yourself over there. Make sure to subscribe to FPL Discomfort as well, so you can keep an eye out for FPL Tension. Thank you for watching. We will see you next